behind us, well, all around us, I suppose. This is Maundy Thursday edition. We have two Maundy Thursday hymns that we're going to talk about. The first one is, O Lord, We Praise Thee, by mostly Martin Luther. What do you know about the hymn?
Yeah, well, the tune was edited by Johann Walter. He was alive from 1496 to 1570, so he was there around Luther's time. And Walter has the title of being dubbed the first cantor of the Lutheran Church. So this tune was probably one of his most important works. It was included in a collection that he had that was published, and it had 43 pieces in it, and it was for choir, for 3-voice or 4-voice or 5-voice choir, it contained some current tunes, so some of the things that people would have known already, and then some new tunes that Walter and others composed. Walter also composed 2 other tunes that we have in our hymnal. One of them is To Jordan Came the Christ our Lord, the traditional tune that we've known. And then the other one is In Peace and Joy I Now Depart.
Wow.
Those are the 2 tunes with that.
So all Luther hymns, those are both Luther hymns.
Yeah. So quite a bit of...
Was he working with Luther to put that together?
I don't know specifically if they worked side by side or if this was a sort of back and forth, what they did, but... Yeah. So, and the text for this, the first verse of the text of this hymn actually comes from a piece that was sung during the observance of Corpus Christi, and so of course Luther at some point decided that was probably not best, and so but he knew that the tune and the text of this was really well loved by the people and that they knew this, so he wanted to provide a communion hymn, and so what he did was he took the first 4 lines of this text and the tune, and then he just replaced the last 2 lines with something that worked out a little bit better. So, and then he wrote the 2 more stanzas to go with it. So, and they often used it as a post-communion canticle. For us, it's been appointed as the hymn of the day for Maundy Thursday, which of course is quite appropriate.
Yeah, there's the Corpus Christi thing was, there's a whole Eucharistic piety in the Catholic Church around the adoration of the body of Jesus. And in fact, it's one of the things that when you go into, for example, into a Catholic parish and you see the candle that's lit, that is an indication that the consecrated host is there, so you can come and adore the host. The Lutherans said, well, while we do adore the body of Jesus, it's there for the purpose of eating. And so Jesus has take and eat and take and drink. And so we never want to have the adoration apart from the eating and the drinking. That's why the Lutherans, they stopped doing the Corpus Christi procession. They stopped doing the reservation of the tabernacle and things like this. And they said, look, it all belongs together. We have the benefit of the promise given for you for the forgiveness of sins in the taking and the eating of it. This hymn also I know, so Luther wrote, there was like 18 months when Luther did almost all of his hymn writing. This is right in the midst of it. And this is one of the hymns that Luther wrote for the Catechism. So remember, the Catechism has 6 chief parts: 10 Commandments, Creed, Lord's Prayer, Baptism, Confession, Absolution, and Lord's Supper. And Luther wrote a hymn for each of those 6 chief parts in a way to help teach those. He knew that music is one of the best ways to learn things and memorize things. And so this is his Lord's Supper hymn. That goes with that. A couple of things to note about the hymn is that it captures this theology beautifully, that the forgiveness of sins is won for us by the death of Jesus on the cross, but it's delivered to us by the means of grace. So in the supper, Jesus brings all the victory of the cross, and he just puts it on our lips and presses the promise into our hearts and ears. And so this really captures it. It's also interesting, this note of Lord have mercy. That's the Kyrie eleison, the beggar's prayer. That's what the beggars would pray in the ancient world. Lord have mercy. And it's poured right in here. This was a key to Luther's theology. It reminds me of the note that was in Luther's pocket when he died. We're beggars. So we're always praying, Lord have mercy. So it's beautiful hymn. 3 stanzas. Ready?
Yeah.
Sing it? We have our quartet here to help sing. the quarantet. You know, some people say that Luther was, this is the claim, that Luther didn't go far enough in the Reformation, and always their proof is his doctrine of the Lord's Supper. They say he should have gotten past the idea of the body and the blood to the memorial meal kind of thing, but there's so much about that. Number one, Luther wrote more about the Lord's Supper than any other topic, his whole ministry. Luther tells the story, how about this, that when he went on pilgrimage to Rome, and there was the priests there in Rome consecrating the Mass, they said the words of institution, "This is my body," and then they stopped and said, "But we know it's not really his body." So the Catholic Church at the time was starting to adopt the Enlightenment idea that it's not really the body and the blood. And so Luther was fighting against the Catholic Church and the radical Reformation and the Reformed and so forth on the other side, the Zwinglians, saying, no, we have the body and the blood, and we have the benefit of the body and the blood, the promise of the forgiveness of sins. Just great. Just great. All right, what's next?
446.
Okay. Jesus greatest at the table. This is a modern hymn.
Yes, both the tune and the text have been written within the last 20 years or so. The text is by Stephen Starkey, Pastor Starkey, who in this hymnal has over 20 texts in here. Is right up there with Luther in the number of texts that we have. I know he served as the chairman of the hymnal committee for the new hymnal, And the story goes that every time one of his hymns came up for approval, he asked to be excused from the room because he didn't want, he didn't want to have any pressure for the people in there. And the comment, I have to read this out if I can see it here, it says, he's a very humble and sensitive man. And then it says, Stephen Starkey's, this is kind of the committee, the consensus of the committee. Stephen Starkey's hymn texts are consistently well-crafted, and they excel theologically and poetically.
Nice.
So he's really done a nice job isn't really good enough, but he's done a fantastic job with taking things and being able to put them into poetic form so that we can sing them in the newer, a little bit newer language, and yet still very heavy theologically and strong. Not watering it down. The tune is by a guy by the name of David McCarthy. He was born in 1931. He's over in Wales, I believe. And this tune is also used for another hymn in our hymnal, LSB 511, Herald, Sound the Note of Judgment. So it's used in two different places. McCarthy was kind of a Renaissance man. He did just about everything. He was a music director, he was an organist, he was a master of the English language, and he was a pastor.
Huh.
So he wrote this melody from some of the research that I've done and read. He wrote this melody for a school chapel service where he was teaching. And he was inspired to write this by a series of programs for youth and weekend music courses written by John Farmer, who was a musician from New Malden. And thus the name of this tune is New Malden. That's a town, suburb in Surrey, England. So this was first printed in 1971 in a collection by Fred Pratt Green, and 26 hymns. The hymn is actually in three parts. The first two parts are the same rhythmically, but the second part goes up just a little bit higher, so we call that a sequence. So if you hear it, it sounds like this. The first part. Now he's going to use the same rhythm and raise it up a minor third. And then he takes the dotted quarter eighth note pattern and he uses that 3 times. It's kind of the most memorable rhythm of the first section, and then ends it with a couple of half notes to bring it to a close. So it's very easy to learn because there's a lot of repetition, and yet it's interesting enough that it keeps your attention.
Fantastic. And the hymn is about it connects the washing of the disciples' feet with the crucifixion, which is really quite stunning. So the humiliation of Jesus, taking a towel, wrapping it around himself, we see it in the astonishment of Peter, who says, "Lord, far be it, I need to wash your feet. You're coming to wash my feet?" And yet Jesus says, "If I don't wash you, you don't have part of me." And so we see the humiliation of Jesus, and we almost can't stand it, as he's down there washing the disciples' feet, and Jesus says, "If you think this is humble, just wait a couple of hours when I'm nailed to the cross." But they're bound up together, and beautifully, poetically in the hymn as well.
All right.
Well, ready?
We sing
it?
Sure, yeah. I'm going to play this one all the way through.
All right.
Jesus
That last stanza, Maundy Thursday. Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, a new commandment I give you. That's if I was naming it, I would call it Lord's Supper Thursday, because or New Testament Sunday, Thursday, or something like that. But the old name comes from that text from John, a new commandment I give you. And we have to say, well, how is that commandment new? Because the commandment to love your neighbor is as old as it gets. Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. But Jesus says, love as I have loved. And so the new thing is that we know the fullness of the love of God because we know Jesus. Because we see his washing their feet, we see his suffering and his dying. That's the love of God unfolded. Sometimes we say that the cross shows us the Father's love, or the cross shows us the love of God, but the cross, it is the love of God. It's a bloody, dying love for us. And so now, because we know God's love for us, it frees us to suffer in love for one another. Really fantastic. Well, thank you. Any final thoughts on these hymns?
No.
Blessed Maundy Thursday to you. Thanks for jumping in. And if you have hymns that you'd like to see us consider, then you can put it in the comments below, and we'll see if we keep doing some of these. God's peace.